This program is sponsored by WG Financial Group, where your retirement matters.
Coming up today on the RITE Retirement Show with Chris Wallace, even the best laid plans can be tested by life's sudden turns. Today, we want to help guide you through some of those difficult trials that you might face in retirement, including the death of a spouse or divorce. After today's show, you'll know some of the simple, actionable steps that you can take to help ensure your future isn't derailed by the unexpected. The RITE Retirement Show with Chris Wallace starts right now.
Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group has been helping families in our area plan for a successful retirement. Chris strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals, creating income in retirement, maximizing your savings, and minimizing taxes. Chris has the strategies you need to help you sustain a successful retirement. Welcome to the RITE Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Chris Wallace, financial advisor and certified financial planner professional. The loss of a spouse through death or divorce is one of the most emotionally overwhelming challenges to deal with. But having a plan in place can help you deal with life's twists and turns. So, Chris, this is a tough topic, but it's so important to let our viewers think about these things because life happens. Yeah, it does. And throughout my career, you have the opportunity to work with both widows and divorced spouses, and it's difficult. It's tough. I mean, when we talk about divorces, close to 50% of all marriages now are ending in divorce. So as a financial planner, really good probability you're going to run into a divorced spouse situation. And being able to be there for them, not only as an advisor, but sometimes just an ear to listen, because it's difficult. I mean, the loss of a spouse or the divorce of a spouse, it's an emotional time, and sometimes an advisor just need to listen. Right. Sometimes just be quiet and listen. Yeah. So we're going to get right to it. Today's big idea is this, to tell you what you need to know about navigating the loss of a spouse, whether it's through death or through divorce. So you got both scenarios there, and neither one is pleasant. No, a divorce actually, to me, kind of reminds me of a really bad recession. Because when you think of divorce, you think half. Right. The fraction comes to mind, half. Because that's what happens with a lot of the assets. They're split down the middle. And what does that do? Well, that basically puts both spouses in a position where they're half down in terms of assets and they've got to rebuild. So if that happens near retirement, that can be pretty devastating. Now, if it's a death that occurs, you've lost your spouse, you probably still have all of the assets, but your income's going to change a little bit. And even in divorce, income is obviously going to change because you lose, if they're working, you lose a W-2 income, or if you're married and retired, there's probably a Social Security, maybe half a pension, So it can be like a recession in a way, and you're kind of, in some ways, kind of starting over a little bit at a later point in life. Right. It can be devastating. Right. I mean, I've had a couple of close friends divorce early in life when the kids were still young, and then what we're talking about right now, though, AARP says 1 in 4 divorces among couples aged 65 or older are happening, and that would be what we call the great, the gray divorce. The gray divorce. Yeah, that's the right. The gray divorce. So tell us what our listeners need to be aware of in case of divorce at this time in life. Yeah, so obviously the assets are probably going to be split. Then you do have some claiming strategies. If we talk about divorce, you can claim off your ex-spouse. And it doesn't hurt their benefit. A lot of people think, I'm going to claim off my ex-husband or ex-wife because it drags down their benefit. It doesn't, but you have that opportunity, but you need to be married more than 10 years to have that opportunity. So there's some rules there you have to be aware of. More than likely, you should start developing a plan. I grew up in a single parent home, and I can remember divorce was difficult. I remember watching my mom, and I didn't spend as much time with my dad because I lived with my mom. But watching my mom struggle, through raising me and my younger brothers, it's difficult because you don't have as much money. You're automatically at a disadvantage. So in a case like this, where we're talking about divorce late in life, you're literally about to go into the glory land of retirement, and now all of a sudden you've really got to start over. And it's a tough time for a lot of people. Right. And usually, not always, but usually there's one spouse that's probably a little more, I guess, emotionally scarred by it.
My mom was very emotionally scarred by it. She was that one. So it just makes that harder. Now you got to deal with the finances and you got to deal with the emotions as well.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you talk to people, about what could happen to them financially if we have the death of a spouse? That's kind of another thing that we don't want to think about it, but we know in a marriage, one of us is going to go first.
Yeah. So what I've seen on both the divorce and the loss of a spouse is it feels like it's the end of the world. Mm-hmm. It really does. And when I'm sitting in a meeting with that type of situation, I can't say I know what you feel like, right? Because you don't.
Right.
I've never lost a spouse, never divorced a spouse like that. So I can't physically say I know what it feels like. So that's where I was talking about earlier in the show, where sometimes you just have to listen, because sometimes your client just needs to get that out of their system. Now, what I will say is it's not the end of the world. It feels like it, but it's not. And things over time will get better. And they always say, like, time is the great healer. And it really is. When there's a death, for the first few months, the surviving spouse, it's rough. Like, they come in and you could see it on their face. It's like all over their face.
Right.
But a year after that, things start to look better. They start to have that glow kind of coming back in their face. But what I have seen, even in my own client base, is they're meeting people. And I've had a couple of clients get remarried. So I know it's not a thing that you want to think about at the time of the death, but what I've seen from afar, you could say, is that through time, it does get better, and that usually what happens is you end up meeting friends, or you end up meeting another person that you kind of run around and do things with, or ultimately end up getting married. But you have to know that the income's going to drop in the death of a spouse, because you're going to lose the lower Social Security. Okay, so there will be an income loss. That's why it's really important today, as we have couples watching the show, that both husband and wife are on the same page with their financial plan. Because what can happen when a sudden death happens, if that one spouse doesn't have a clue with what's going on, now they're dealing with the emotion of the death, and now they're dealing with the panic emotion of, oh my gosh, what do I do? And the knee-jerk reaction that I see often is that, put everything under the mattress at that point. I can't spend as much money. I can't afford to live anymore. So that's kind of the panic thing that starts to happen.
Okay, so we have a lot more to cover. Coming up next, strategies to help you prepare for what we're talking about, life's twists and turns in retirement. And then later, Chris is going to be on the hot seat again for Retirement IQ. Stay tuned.
Are you a federal employee facing early retirement offers from programs like FERA, VSIP, or DRP? Before you make any decisions, call 615-265-1778 to schedule a free discovery session with WG Financial Group. WG Financial Group can help you navigate changes to federal retirement programs. It's your retirement. Know where you stand. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 615-265-1778 to schedule your session today.
You've worked hard to build up your retirement savings, but do you know how much you're paying in fees inside of your investment and retirement accounts? When it comes to fees you might be paying, what you don't know can hurt you. I'm Chris Wallace, and my team at WG Financial Group can help you understand exactly where your money is going. Call us and set up your discovery session today. Let's get things started. How many times in your life do you make $1 million decision? For some of you, that's exactly what Social Security is. Hi, I'm Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group. When you go through and do the math, the average Social Security payment adds up to more than $700,000 over 30 years. If you're married and you double that number, now you're talking well over $1 million. So doesn't it make sense to talk to someone who can help you decide the appropriate time to start taking your benefits? Call us and schedule your complimentary discovery session today. Did you know that taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the appropriate strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. With a plan to help you protect your retirement savings from higher taxes, that's just more of your hard-earned money back in your pocket. At WG Financial Group, helping people like you optimize taxes in retirement is what we do. Call us to schedule your complimentary discovery session today.
I've here with Chris Wallace, financial advisor and certified financial planner professional, also founder of WG Financial Group. Chris, today we're helping our viewers understand the financial changes that could come from the loss of a spouse, and now we want to help give you some ways to deal with these challenges. Yeah,
so when it comes to divorce, so if we kind of keep the two separate, we talked about earlier that there's likely going to be the half. The assets are going to split in half, so that's one really important thing. The other thing that you want to make sure that you do, and I've seen this where this has happened before, where everything's finalized and then you do not update your beneficiaries. So if you're watching the show, you're going through divorce, you need to set yourself a reminder in your phone.
Put it in there.
Put a sticky note on the refrigerator, update your beneficiaries. Because the worst thing you want to do is get divorced and then something happened and then the assets don't go where you want them to go. So that's really important that you do that. Go all the way through. Go through your employer plans, your IRAs, your bank accounts, because for everybody watching the show today, if you have a bank account, you always want to make sure you have payable on death. You want to have a beneficiary or name there as well. Some people think, well, I got a will. The will's going to tell it where to go. Well, if you have a named beneficiary, the named beneficiary always trumps the will. So just make sure that you update all of your beneficiaries, okay? Then the next thing, we talked about legal documents here. I'm not an attorney, not a estate planner, but I know how to ask some of the right questions. And if you're a divorced spouse and went through a divorce, you need to update your legal documents. You need to update the will. You need to update your power of attorney, because more than likely your agent was probably your ex-spouse. So you got to find somebody else to make decisions. These are important the older you get, because the older you get, the more likely certain things may happen from a health perspective. So you want to make sure that that's taken care of. And then you want to understand too, from a Social Security perspective, if is there any opportunity for you to better your Social Security? So I'll use my mother for an example. My mom stayed home with myself and my two brothers most of her career. So when she was eligible for part of my dad's Social Security. Now, she was one of the ones that thought it hurt his Social Security, and it doesn't at all.
She's like, give it to me.
Yeah, like, let me take it. Let me take that Social Security, right? So, understand your Social Security claiming options there and the rules surrounding that. Again, make sure you're working, with a professional like myself or someone in the community that can kind of help walk you through that.
Okay, so then let's take a look at the other scenario that we're focusing on today, and that is the death of a spouse.
Yeah.
Tell us how you talk to your retirees about that, preparing for that, that possibility. I mean, it's going to the inevitability, really.
Yeah, like literally the chances of passing together is pretty low.
Right.
So one's probably going to go before the other. So there again, just quick thing here, you want to update your legal documents, obviously, because now there's just one of you, right?
Right.
The other thing too that I think you need to think about in the pre-planning or pre-death, let's call it, stage, is the income is going to change. We know that. The expenses are going to change too, but they're not going to cut in half. And I think that's the big misconception that I have heard from specifically husbands, and I can say that I'm a man, we can have very, rigid ways that we think, right? But the expenses for most families that we work with, they don't cut in half. So at our office, what we use is an 80%. So they'll reduce by about 20%, and then you still need 80% of that income to cover, life's living expenses. So you want to understand that it won't be half. The other thing that I would encourage a husband and wife to talk about is make sure there's adequate life insurance, especially if you're still carrying debt. Because what I've heard before is, oh, don't worry, he or she can sell the house. Okay, wait a minute. You're telling me in one of the most sad times of their life, the loss of a spouse, that now they got to put the house on the market and they got to sell the house in a fire sale to make sure they can fund their living. That puts the surviving spouse in a really bad situation. It also potentially puts the kids in a bad situation as well, because they will want to step up and help.
Sure.
They're not going to let mom or dad suffer. So you want to make sure that you're planning for that and not just say, well, I've got the house, they can sell the house, and they got this. Build a plan so that if you do pass away, that survivor is good. You also have some survivor benefits when it comes to Social Security, and they're different than the divorced benefits, okay? So survivor benefits, you have to be married at least 9 months, okay? So divorced spouse was 10 years.
Right. Okay.
Survivor benefits is 9 months. But here's the key thing. If you were married before that and you have another deceased spouse, you have a couple of different deceased spouses that you can choose from.
You can't have them all.
Right. If you marry before the age of 60, then the spousal benefit, goes out.
Okay.
But post 60, let's see, and I've had this happen, I've had a spouse where she was married, she lost her husband north of 60, so now she's widowed twice at that point.
Right.
So now she has a couple different options in Social Security. So here again, just knowing your claiming options, working with a firm that understands the right way to guide you. So yeah, it's important. Definitely important.
And I am 65, and 3 of my closest friends now have lost their husbands, and my sister-in-law. So I've watched it here, and I'd say the last 3 years. And it's scary, because, they all thought, their husbands would live well into their 80s. We all do. My brother-in-law, we thought that. And so now I'm watching them manage their lifestyle. And man, I'm proud of them too for, stepping in and doing what they have to do. But, watching it has made all of our little friend group go, oh, wow, what would I do? And really think about it now.
Right. Put some thought into it. The most people that buy long-term care have had parents go through long-term care.
Right.
So in your situation, you're talking about your friend group losing a spouse.
Yeah.
It starts to make you think about that. The planning aspect of it probably draws you guys a little bit tighter as well.
Yeah.
But I can tell you as an advisor, it's the hardest part of my job by far.
Yeah,
it's not the recession. It's not the political office. It's when one of your clients dies. And for me, like if I see a female cry, it's terrible. But I'm gonna tell you, it's just as bad to hear a man cry.
Sure.
Because it's more rare. In a lot of cases.
Yes.
But to hear a man doing what I call that ugly cry, where he's sucking air and it'll make me cry in some cases. It's the hardest part of my job.
Chris, thank you so much for your insights. I know you do deeply care about your clients.
For sure.
Coming up next, Chris is in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. And then coming up later, what are some simple actionable steps that you can take to help you prepare for life's curveballs? Chris has your checklist challenge. Stay with us.
Are you a federal employee facing early retirement offers from programs like FERA, VSIP, or DRP? Before you make any decisions, call 615-265-1778 to schedule a free discovery session with WG Financial Group. WG Financial Group can help you navigate changes to federal retirement programs. It's your retirement. Know where you stand. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 615-265-1778 to schedule your session today.
Did you know that taxes could be your biggest expense in retirement? No one can avoid taxes completely, but with the appropriate strategies in place, you could potentially reduce your taxes in retirement. With a plan to help you protect your retirement savings from higher taxes, that's just more of your hard-earned money back in your pocket. At WG Financial Group, helping people like you optimize taxes in retirement is what we do. Call us to schedule your complimentary discovery session today. How many times in your life do you make $1 million decision? For some of you, that's exactly what Social Security is. Hi, I'm Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group. When you go through and do the math, the average Social Security payment adds up to more than $700,000 over 30 years. If you're married and you double that number, now you're talking well over $1 million. So doesn't it make sense to talk to someone who can help you decide the appropriate time to start taking your benefits? Call us and schedule your complimentary discovery session today.
And now it's time to put our knowledge to the test with this week's Retirement IQ. You ready for this, Chris?
Always.
Okay, so this is a true or false question, okay? Shouldn't be that hard to answer.
Well, true false is pretty easy.
Yeah.
I love it.
50-50.
50-50. I can flip a coin.
We could flip a coin. You got one?
Yeah.
70% of adults 65 and older will need some type of long-term care. True or false?
This is true. I think a lot of people watching the show think that it may not happen to them, but rest assured, those that have dealt with it, I mentioned it earlier in the show as kind of an analogy, that those who have dealt with parents that have had long-term care events or they've been in a nursing home, they know it's true. And those individuals are much more likely to buy long-term care because they've seen it just rip through a nest egg. It's expensive. You talk about like the Metro, Huntsville, Nashville areas, those two states together. I mean, you're looking at somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 in a lot of cases to have like a private room. So it's very, very expensive. But when we talk about this 70% number, let me just kind of mention that for a second. It's not that 70% of us are going to end up in the nursing home. That's not what that question is asking. It's asking that 70% of us are going to need some level of
Oh, yeah, it
long-term
does
care.
say some type. Yeah,
Correct.
You're
correct.
right.
Which
okay.
is, care normally starts in the home. Okay, it starts in the home, and it's kind of assisted living, and then it progresses to full-blown skilled care. Most people prefer and want to stay in their home, obviously. So in order to do that, either a spouse is going to take responsibility and care, or a lot of times a daughter steps in if you have a daughter. Now, my daughter said she's not going to do that for me, but that's a whole other story. Or you pay somebody to come in, because you might reach a point where if you're a wife trying to lift your husband out of bed, it may be a little much for you. You have to have somebody come help do that. So it's best to either have a policy in place, and there are policies today out there that I think are great policies. I'm not an advocate of waiting on long-term care. I think we have to start thinking about long-term care much earlier in life. And I think there's some hybrid policies out there today that work really, really well in order to prepare you for something that may happen later down the road.
Okay, good to know, because it makes me think of my parents. My mother was only 70
Yeah.
when she went into a nursing home.
That's young.
Very young. And my parents really weren't prepared for that, yet. And so my father seeing all of, the payment for the nursing home coming out every month really kind of bothered him. And then he turned around and kind of did something real quick for himself and got nursing home insurance. I don't even know if that was the right thing for him, but, he did that. But that was an example right there where they were not prepared. All right, let's move on to a second question here. Another true-false. If your ex-spouse files for Social Security benefits based on your record, it will cut your benefits in half.
Yeah,
This is
this is what we mentioned
the
earlier.
opposite now.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It has no impact. So it's false.
That would be false.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
false. Yeah.
All right.
No
very
impact
good.
whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Next one, number 3, true or false? On average, women live longer than men.
This is true. The average woman is going to live to around age 80, and the average man's going to be around 75. But here's just a little cool statistic. A couple that's age 65 has nearly a 47% chance that one of them reaches age 90, and about a 20% chance one reaches age 95.
Interesting.
Yeah, so couples, you build the unity, the community.
Yeah.
You're probably encouraging healthier habits. You've got that other support pillar, in a relationship. That's probably the reason why there's some longevity there over versus single individuals.
So then women, this is where women come in, they really need to plan on the possibility of living longer in retirement than their husband.
I deal with more widows than I do widowers.
Right.
Absolutely.
So they need to kind of be focused on
Correct.
that possibility. Okay. Last question, true or false? If you get divorced and remarry, your beneficiary designations automatically change to your new spouse's name.
We covered this one earlier as well, and it is a big fault. So I cannot reiterate enough. If you're going through a divorce, recently been through a divorce, go through all of your accounts. Make sure all of the beneficiaries are up to date. Make sure all your legal documents are up to date, because you don't want the unthinkable to happen and then everything goes the other direction that you don't want it to go. And while I'm on that, I just want to say something about beneficiaries. It has nothing to do with a divorce, but I want to throw this little nugget in there for the viewers. If you have a bank account, I would not be putting your kids as owners of the bank account with you. You're going to be tempted to do that as you need long-term care, but you want to use the power of attorney to do that, not put them on there as an owner, because it opens that account up to a lawsuit in the event they get in a lawsuit. So never put your kids on your bank account.
Okay, wow. Great tidbits of information. Thank you so much for that.
Full of useless knowledge,
Yes,
right,
you
Luann?
are. 100% correct, though, on all of our IQ. Still to come, you're going to learn some of the simple steps you can take today to help you prepare for some of life's curveballs. Because how useful is knowledge without action? Stay tuned for that.
You've worked hard to build up your retirement savings, but do you know how much you're paying in fees inside of your investment and retirement accounts? When it comes to fees you might be paying, what you don't know can hurt you. I'm Chris Wallace, and my team at WG Financial Group can help you understand exactly where your money is going. Call us and set up your discovery session today. Let's get things started.
Are you a federal employee facing early retirement offers from programs like FERA, VSIP, or DRP? Before you make any decisions, call 615-265-1778 to schedule a free discovery session with WG Financial Group. WG Financial Group can help you navigate changes to federal retirement programs. It's your retirement. Know where you stand. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 615-265-1778 to schedule your session today.
Thank you for joining us today on the RITE Retirement Show with Chris Wallace. So, Chris, we've talked about a lot of important things today, and of course, these haven't been fun to talk about because it's talking about the loss of a spouse. And you've helped us kind of see and understand, what we need to do to plan for such scenario. We've learned a lot. The thing is, the saying goes, knowledge is power, but there's more to that.
Right. It's only power if it's applied.
Right.
So it's Dale Carnegie that said that. So,
right.
So as we close the show, I just want to talk about some takeaways. The first thing that you can do is go to ssa.gov and you can download your Social Security report. That's important because you want to make sure that all of your income is getting reported and that it's accurate. You'll also need to know that number for claiming abilities and what's your strategy going to be. So go to Social Security, ssa.gov, download that report, double check that, make sure everything's correct, and then use that as part of your planning. The second thing that we've talked about a lot on the show, and I just want to harp on it one more time, is if you are divorced or even if you've lost a spouse, you want to make sure that the beneficiaries are updated on all of your accounts. Get your legal documents updated as well. I think that's really important. And then the last thing that I'll talk to the viewers about today is really understanding the different types of accounts that you have. Because in either situation, you're going to go into the single filer tax bracket. But it's different if you're divorced. If you divorce, you must file single in the year that you divorce. In a death of a spouse situation, in the year that death occurs, you can still use the married filing jointly. So it's a little bit more favorable. So I think it's important that you start to understand what types of retirement accounts you have. And I would even encourage that pre-death and the sudden death, if we will, if we want to call it that, so that you can do some tax efficient planning if you need to. So maybe that would be some Roth conversion, so you're not leaving your surviving spouse with all pre-tax money. So there's a lot of things you need to look at within your accounts to make sure that the accounts you have transfer the way that you want them to your surviving spouse, and even down to your kids, as well. So when you're both gone, you really want your assets always transferring in the most efficient way possible.
Right. Okay. So, gosh, you have helped us with so much today. Simple things, simple actionable things that we can do right now.
Simple things in a real emotional situation. And that's the thing we have to remember is how do we're not going to be able to eliminate the emotion, but how do we simplify the financial things so that they're easier to get done while we're dealing with the emotion? Okay.
And we have a way. Thank you for joining us today. We do hope that you can take what you learned from Chris today, put it into action. Don't forget, Chris and our team, they are here to help you stay on top of all things retirement so that you can be free to spend time doing what you love with the people who matter the most to you. For Chris and our team at WG Financial Group, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
This program is sponsored by WG Financial Group, where your retirement matters.